As the global political and social landscape of 2026 transitions toward a period defined by institutional fortification and renewed stability, the British monarchy has executed what many seasoned observers are calling a masterstroke of diplomatic and constitutional engineering. This strategic reorganization has effectively erased the long-standing shadow cast by the Duke and Duchess of Sussex over the future of the crown, replacing drama with a disciplined focus on duty. The most jarring and definitive signal of this institutional shift occurred during King Charles III's high-profile diplomatic visit to the United States in the early months of 2026. For nearly half a year leading up to the trip, the international press had been awash with feverish speculation regarding a potential Montecito summit. Media outlets from London to Los Angeles had envisioned a bridge-building meeting between the sovereign and his estranged younger son, perhaps even a public reconciliation that would soften the edges of their fractured relationship. However, the reality provided a chilling and unmistakable clarity that left no room for ambiguity. Despite being within the distance of a short flight from the Sussexes' sprawling California enclave, the king's itinerary was surgically and purposefully devoid of any space for Harry. Reports gathered from high-level diplomatic sources indicated that the king explicitly declined multiple, increasingly desperate requests for an audience. This was far from a failure of logistics or a scheduling conflict. It was a profound constitutional statement. By refusing to meet his son on American soil, the king established a clear red line that signaled to the world, and perhaps more importantly to the Washington political elite, that Harry is no longer a representative of the British state. He has been relegated to the status of a private individual whose presence is no longer a priority or even a consideration for the crown. This period of political distancing has coincided perfectly with the rise of a new institutional hero who has captured the imagination of the British public, James Alexander, the Earl of Wessex. While Harry and Meghan have spent the opening months of 2026 attempting to explain their professional collapse through a series of familiar royal standard excuses, the palace has been busy highlighting James as the living embodiment of the new, drama-free monarchy. At only 18 years of age, the son of Prince Edward and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, has been moved with surprising speed to the forefront of state occasions. James represents exactly what the Sussexes ultimately failed to deliver to the institution: consistency, discretion, and a profound, unyielding respect for the performance of duty. Within the internal political hierarchy of the House of Windsor, James Alexander is no longer viewed as just a nephew or a minor royal. He is being framed as the spare that was promised, a reliable, stoic supporting pillar for the future reign of William and Catherine. The urgency of this transition was fueled by what has become known as the Kardashian debacle of late 2025, which acted as a definitive catalyst for the palace's current Ice Age strategy. The news that Harry and Meghan had attended Kris Jenner's lavish 70th birthday bash during the sacred mourning period of remembrance Sunday sent shockwaves through the United Kingdom's political and military establishment. The couple's subsequent attempt to scrub images from social media under the guise of respecting royal solemnity was viewed in London as the ultimate act of public relations cowardice. The palace's reaction, gathered from multiple departmental sources, was one of quiet, incandescent fury. They saw a couple who attempted to use the monarchy's most somber traditions as a get-out-of-jail-free card to avoid a self-inflicted PR nightmare. This event finalized the consensus within the inner circle. The Sussexes were no longer just estranged relatives. They were tactical liabilities who used the crown's reputation to mask their own social and professional missteps. Adding to the palpable tension is the Sussexes' new and increasingly thin narrative regarding their failed commercial ventures in the United States. As major contracts with Netflix and Spotify have entered a state of terminal financial atrophy due to poor quality and a distinct lack of creative output, the Sussex PR machine has pivoted to blaming the shackles of the monarchy for their stagnation. Meghan has recently leaked information to friendly outlets claiming that her various projects are stalled because she is laboriously self-editing every frame to ensure she does not accidentally offend the king. Veteran royal commentators and industry insiders have dismantled this claim as a pure credibility gap, pointing out the irony of the situation. A woman who spent years attacking the institution on global television is now claiming she is too respectful to release a lifestyle or cooking show. The palace views this as a desperate attempt to use the monarchy as a shield for their own professional incompetence. As of April 2026, the marginalization of the couple is complete. The era of correction has seen the professional divorce of Meghan from the powerful WME agency after Ari Emanuel reportedly grew weary of her diva demands and the lack of verifiable content. The Sussex brand has moved from being a global powerhouse to a mid-tier celebrity cautionary tale. While James Alexander is being groomed for a life of service and stability, Harry is being relegated to the role of a pinch hitter on the international speaking circuit. With fees dropping to a mere $50,000 for corporate events in Australia, the monarchy has moved past the Sussex crisis by simply continuing to exist without them. The silent boundary is now a permanent fixture of the British state. And as the world looks toward the future, the names that define the crown are no longer Harry and Meghan, but William, Catherine, and the emerging, scandal-free James Alexander. The constitutional purge is not just happening, it is finished. As the political walls of the British monarchy have been reinforced by the silent boundary established by King Charles III and the emergence of James Alexander, the second phase of the Sussex implosion is manifesting as a brutal professional isolation within the entertainment industry. By the 10th of April 2026, the strategic pivot of Harry and Meghan has moved from global changemakers to what industry insiders call reputational refugees. The most significant barometer of this collapse is the total disintegration of their once impenetrable Hollywood support network. The very individuals who acted as the couple's primary architects for their American dream, most notably Oprah Winfrey and Ari Emanuel, have executed a surgical withdrawal that has left the Sussex brand exposed and without a rudder. The silence from the Winfrey camp is perhaps the most definitive evidence of this shift. In 2021, Oprah Winfrey provided the foundational platform for the Sussexes to broadcast their grievances to a global audience. However, in the era of correction, that landmark interview is now viewed as a toxic asset. Reports gathered from high-level media insiders in Los Angeles indicate that Oprah has moved to protect her personal legacy by maintaining an absolute, unyielding distance from the couple. The catalyst for this disillusionment was the forensic dismantling of key narrative points from the sit-down, specifically the claim of a secret marriage 3 days before the royal wedding, which was definitively debunked by the Archbishop of Canterbury. For a media mogul whose brand is built on the pursuit of the truth, being the vehicle for verifiable inaccuracies is considered an unforgivable breach of trust. The woman who once stood as their most powerful defender has now relegated them to the do not mention list, a silence that resonates more loudly in the halls of power than any tabloid headline could. This professional isolation reached a tipping point with a sudden and acrimonious split from William Morris' endeavor. Ari Emanuel, the man legendary for his cutthroat management and high-stakes deal-making, reportedly terminated the relationship with Meghan Markle after a period of intense internal friction. The breaking point is whispered to have occurred during the Thanksgiving holiday of 2025. Sources within the agency reveal that Meghan became incensed when WME staff were unavailable to provide round-the-clock crisis management during the sacred American holiday. This diva behavior, which the couple spent years denying during their time in London, reportedly manifested with such intensity that Emanuel concluded the Sussex brand was no longer worth the internal friction. Without the bargaining power of a major agency like WME, the Sussexes have been left to navigate the brutal waters of Hollywood without any professional protection. The immediate fallout of this loss has been the severe downgrading of their major streaming contracts. As of April 2026, the high-budget deals with Netflix and Spotify have entered a state of terminal stagnation. Projects that were once heralded as revolutionary have been quietly shelved or stalled in development hell. Industry analysts point to a credibility gap where exorbitant expectations were met with lackluster creative output. To counter this, the Sussex PR team has attempted to use the British monarchy as a get-out-of-jail-free card once again. Meghan has recently begun to claim that her projects are boring or delayed because she is painstakingly self-editing to ensure she doesn't offend the king, a narrative that veterans like Dan Wooten have called out as pure sophistry. The reality is far simpler. When the initial shock value of their royal grievances was exhausted, there was no original content left to sustain the interest of a global audience. Adding to the sense of professional decay is the precipitous drop in Prince Harry's value on the speaking circuit. Once rumored to command six-figure fees for a single appearance, Harry has recently been reduced to acting as a celebrity pinch hitter for corporate events. During a recent symposium in Australia, Harry's fee reportedly dropped to a mere $50,000, a significant sum for most, but a fraction of what is required to maintain the $14 million Montecito estate and a multi-million-dollar private security detail. Analysts now observe a shift where Harry has gone from being Prince William's spare to being Meghan's commercial spare. While Harry hawked $50,000 speeches at half-empty retreats, Meghan has been forced to pivot toward the mummy blogger and influencer economy, attempting to salvage her relatability through luxury fireside chats for women-only retreats. This financial atrophy is being met with a chilling indifference from the global elite. Invitations to high-profile charity galas and international forums are being quietly rescinded as proximity to the Sussex scandal is now viewed as a career-ending risk. The Sussex sparkle has been replaced by a Sussex stain, and the heritage brands of Hollywood, including Dior, Gucci, and Balenciaga, have reportedly issued firm but polite rejections to any major partnership. These brands prioritize stability and timelessness, qualities that are fundamentally at odds with the volatile and historically inconsistent nature of the Sussex narrative. As the second chapter of the 2026 crisis unfolds, the conclusion is unavoidable. The couple who sought to revolutionize the media landscape is now being marginalized by the very industry they tried to conquer, leaving them trapped in a gilded cage of their own making. As the spring of 2026 deepens, the internal psychological warfare between the Montecito enclave and the British monarchy has reached a fever pitch centered on what cultural critics now call the Kardashian debacle. This event, occurring during the late months of 2025 and reverberating into the current era of correction, has exposed the profound logical fallacies in the Sussexes, attempts to use the crown as a moral sanctuary. The tension reached a breaking point when news leaked of Harry and Meghan's attendance at Kris Jenner's lavish 70th birthday celebration, a high-glamour event that coincided precisely with the somber observances of Remembrance Sunday in the United Kingdom. For the British public and the military establishment, Remembrance Sunday is a sacred, untouchable tradition. The sight of the King and the Prince of Wales laying wreaths at the cenotaph in London is the ultimate symbol of institutional service and sacrifice. However, thousands of miles away in Calabasas, the Sussexes were reportedly participating in the glitz and festive excesses of the American reality TV elite. When the contradiction became apparent, the Sussex PR machine initiated a frantic, high-stakes damage control operation. Harry and Meghan reportedly demanded that Kim Kardashian and Kris Jenner scrub any images of them from social media. Their official justification, whispered to friendly outlets, was that they wished to show solemn respect for the king and the fallen soldiers by not appearing in celebratory contexts during a period of mourning. The reaction from London was one of cold, incandescent fury. Sources within the palace's communication departments, who have maintained a disciplined silence for years, described the move as the height of performative piety. The hypocrisy was staggering. A couple who had spent years systematically attempting to dismantle the monarchy's reputation through docuseries and memoirs was now attempting to hide behind the institution's most sacred traditions to avoid a PR nightmare. Experts like Paula Frolick and Dan Wooten were quick to dismantle this royal shield. They pointed out that if the couple truly respected the solemnity of the occasion, they would have declined the invitation to a birthday bash in the first place. This was not an act of respect. It was a desperate attempt to avoid being labeled as out-of-touch narcissists who party while the rest of the nation mourns. This event has solidified the palace's new silent operator protocol. Instead of engaging in a public war of words, the monarchy has simply moved to replace the Sussexes in the national consciousness. The emergence of James Alexander, the Earl of Wessex, as a dutiful and scandal-free alternative has been the palace's most effective countermeasure. While Harry and Meghan were seen squabbling over social media posts and self-editing their content to avoid offending a king they have spent years trashing, James Alexander was quietly fulfilling his duties with a poise that many have compared to the late Prince Philip. James has become the stabilizing spare, a young man who understands that the privilege of the palace is a reward for service, not a birthright for the disgruntled. Adding to the Sussexes' woes is the reputation contagion currently affecting their commercial viability. As their contracts with Netflix and Spotify have stagnated, the couple has introduced a new narrative. They claim their work is boring because they are following royal standards of decorum. This pious rebranding is viewed by Hollywood insiders as a transparent mask for a lack of creative direction. The claim that they are protecting the monarchy is fundamentally inconsistent with their past behavior. When they were filming a 6-part Netflix series detailing private family conversations, or when Harry was penning his memoir, royal standards were nowhere to be found. To invoke them now, only when their market value has crashed, is seen as a cynical use of the crown as a get-out-of-jail-free card for professional failure. Furthermore, reports from AP News and other investigative sources suggest that this royal standard excuse is failing to convince the American public. The credibility gap has become a canyon. The narrative that they are noble victims of their own high standards is being met with the term grifters, a label that has stuck since the collapse of their Spotify deal. The American audience, initially captivated by the drama of Megxit, has grown discerning. They see the contradiction of a couple who demands privacy while constantly seeking the spotlight, and who claims to be constrained by the monarchy while living in a $14 million mansion funded by the very status they claim to find oppressive. By April 2026, the royal shield has become a fortress built on sand. The palace has successfully marginalized the Sussexes by simply continuing to perform the work of the monarchy with a new, unified team. The rise of James Alexander has provided the public with a version of the royal future that is focused on duty rather than individual grievances. As the era of correction continues, the Sussexes are finding that they can no longer manipulate the crown's reputation to save their own. The door to the palace is closed, and the royal standard they now claim to uphold is one they have long since forfeited the right to represent. The silence from Buckingham Palace is the final confirmation. The monarchy has moved on, and in the final edit of the 2026 crisis, Harry and Meghan have been written out of the story. While the Montecito narrative remains trapped in a cycle of defensive rebranding and professional stagnation, the British monarchy has executed a clinical reorganization of its frontline personnel. The political weight of the Sussex crisis necessitated more than just a public relations response. It required a structural replacement. James Alexander, the Earl of Wessex, has been strategically elevated from a background member of the royal family to the primary embodiment of the monarchy's future stability. This is not merely a promotion based on family ties, but a calculated state-level response to the vacancy left by Prince Harry's departure and subsequent professional implosion. The palace's strategy, often referred to by insiders as the doctrine of continuity, focuses on presenting James as the antithesis of the Sussex brand. Where Harry and Meghan's presence was defined by calculated reveals and high-tension drama, James Alexander represents a return to the stoic, service-oriented model of his grandfather. At just 18 years old, his poise during the 2026 state opening of Parliament and his growing role within the Duchy of Cornwall have provided the public with a scandal-free alternative. Reports from sources close to the Prince of Wales indicate that William views James as a vital asset, a stabilizing spare who provides the depth and reliability that the slimmed-down monarchy desperately needs to maintain its radiant image. This elevation of James Alexander has profound political implications, as it effectively signals the end of Harry's leverage as a unique institutional asset. For years, the Sussexes operated under the assumption that the crown would eventually be forced to negotiate due to a lack of popular, younger royals to fill the ranks. By fast-tracking James into high-profile duties, the King and Prince William have destroyed this leverage. The narrative in the UK has shifted decisively. The public is no longer asking when Harry will return, but is instead focused on the rise of James. The Earl of Wessex brings a sense of fresh, untainted loyalty that highlights the volatile and historically inconsistent nature of the Sussexes' recent behaviors. The reaction from the Sussex camp to James's rise has been one of quiet desperation, manifested through their royal standard defensive pivot. As James earns accolades for his quiet dedication, Meghan has attempted to frame her own professional silence as a similar act of noble restraint. However, the palace's indifference to these claims serves as the ultimate correction. By simply not engaging with the Sussexes' pious excuses, the Crown has allowed the contrast between James's active service and the Sussexes' commercial financial atrophy to speak for itself. The inner circle, Anne, Edward, and Sophie, have formed a unified front, ensuring that the transition of the spare role from Harry to James is viewed not as a family rift, but as an institutional upgrade. In the final constitutional landscape of 2026, James Alexander is the future, and the shadow of the Sussexes is being permanently replaced by the light of a new, drama-free generation. As the era of correction reaches its peak in April 2026, the structural collapse of the Sussex brand has moved from the boardrooms of Hollywood into the most intimate and controversial territory of their Montecito life, the commercialization of their children, Archie and Lilibet. This development represents a staggering reversal of the privacy doctrine that Prince Harry has spent the last half-decade championing with litigious fervor. Behind the scenes, the disintegration of high-value contracts with Netflix and the loss of protection from WME have created a financial atrophy so severe that the couple has been forced to trade the one currency they once vowed to protect at all costs, the images of their heirs. For years, the Duke of Sussex campaigned against the paparazzi culture, even aligning himself with influential tech censorship groups to argue that the public posting of children's images was a violation of fundamental human rights. However, by the spring of 2026, the $14 million maintenance of the Montecito estate and the multi-million-dollar annual security bill, which King Charles III has definitively refused to subsidize, have rendered those principles unsustainable. The mummy blogger economy has become the final door left open for Meghan, and the children have been drafted into the role of brand ambassadors. The recent release of the Easter video and various skiing clips has sparked a firestorm of analysis and skepticism from digital forensics experts and royal commentators. These videos, designed to project a back-to-basics and aggressively relatable family life, have instead created what many describe as a melancholy and creepy perception of their existence. Analysts have pointed out glaring inconsistencies in the footage, moments where Lilibet's hair color and length change abruptly between frames, or where the relative sizes of the two children appear physically impossible in the snow. These anomalies have led to a credibility gap that transcends mere PR spin. It suggests a family so disconnected from reality that they are willing to quilt together desperate clips from different years, or perhaps different subjects entirely, just to maintain a digital pulse and secure sponsorship deals. This pivot to digital heirs is viewed by the palace's inner circle, including Princess Anne and the Duchess of Edinburgh, as a tragic manifestation of the Sussex stain, while the Earl of Wessex, James Alexander, is seen performing his duties with a genuine, unforced dignity that requires no camera filters. The Sussex children appear as solitary shadows in a vast, cold estate that critics have dubbed a palatial prison. The contrast is politically and socially devastating. James Alexander represents the triumph of the performance of duty over calculated celebrity, while the Sussexes' recent output is seen as a desperate cash grab disguised as authentic motherhood. The financial desperation is further evidenced by the collapse of Harry's speaking fees on the international circuit. The recent corporate symposium in Australia, where Harry's fee dropped to a mere $50,000, serves as a clinical study in the implosion of global prestige. To justify these pay-to-play corporate gigs, the Sussexes have attempted to use 5-minute charity visits to shine a light on causes, a tactic the Australian public has largely greeted with a collective shrug. The pious claims from their camp that they are only doing these events to do good ignore the reality that without these commercial appearances, the Montecito lifestyle would fundamentally bankrupt them. Furthermore, the Sussexes' attempts to align themselves with Australian politicians seeking to regulate social media has added fuel to the fire. In their quest to become censorship kings, they have alienated a massive segment of the public who prize free speech. Harry is no longer seen as the unifying hero of the Invictus Games, but as a partisan influencer attempting to regulate the digital landscape to shield himself from the era of correction. This lack of authentic remorse and the continued use of royal standards as a shield for professional failure has left them in a no-man's land. They are too controversial for heritage brands and too alienated for the halls of Windsor. In the final assessment of this financial atrophy, the most significant casualty is the Sussexes' authenticity index. The established 2021 chicken coops and the wellies in the opera interview are now viewed as stage props in a failed play. The fake credibility index has become so high that even their most supportive American outlets, such as US Weekly, have begun to publish articles dissecting their string of failures. By April 2026, the world is no longer buying the ticket to the Sussex show. The silent boundary established by the King and the rise of James Alexander have provided a drama-free alternative that the public has embraced, leaving Harry and Meghan to trade in the shadows of their own making, using their children to pay the bills for a lifestyle that the monarchy has rightfully determined they no longer deserve to represent. As the calendar settles into the late spring of 2026, the era of correction has reached its ultimate clinical conclusion. The British monarchy has not only survived the Sussex insurgency, but has emerged with a structural clarity that few predicted during the turbulent years of 2020 and 2021. The final phase of this transformation is characterized by a loud silence, a strategic refusal by Buckingham Palace to grant Harry and Meghan even a tangential link to the institution's future. The silent boundary has hardened into a permanent constitutional wall, and the royal shield that the Sussexes so desperately tried to hide behind has been definitively reclaimed by the crown. The most profound evidence of this institutional victory is the King's ignore and replace strategy, which has moved from a tactical maneuver to a foundational policy. During the 100th anniversary commemorations of Queen Elizabeth II's birth, the absence of the Sussexes was not a scandal, it was a mere footnote. While Harry and Meghan were in Montecito allegedly self-editing their Netflix projects to meet royal standards, the King was busy showcasing the working core. The presence of James Alexander at the side of the Prince and Princess of Wales provided a visual narrative of a trimmed-down monarchy that is focused on duty, not grievance. James has effectively inherited the spare mantle, and his popularity with the British public, which prizes his drama-free loyalty, has rendered Harry's potential return not just impossible, but entirely unnecessary. Behind the scenes, the palace's response to the Sussexes' recent claims of royal restraint has been one of surgical indifference. When Meghan leaked to the press that she was acting as a rigorous self-editor to protect the monarchy, the response from the inner circle was a masterclass in marginalization. Sources within the palace communications team indicate that they view this pious rebranding as a transparent attempt to use the crown to explain away a lack of creative bankability. The inconsistencies that have plagued the Sussex narrative, from the 2021 opera inaccuracies to the Kardashian birthday debacle, have destroyed their authenticity index. The palace understands that the public can now see through the tactic. The couple only cares about royal standards when their commercial contracts are being cancelled and their reputation is at zero. The Kardashian debacle acted as the final catalyst for this total severance. The attempt by the Sussexes to use the sanctity of remembrance Sunday as a get-out-of-jail-free card after being caught at a celebrity party was the final proof the palace needed. It confirmed that Harry and Meghan view the crown's traditions as a utility to be used for PR damage control rather than a sacred trust to be upheld. This realization led to the king's decisiveness during his U.S. visit, where he established a clear red line by refusing to grant Harry an audience. This was the definitive signal to the global elite. The bank of the monarchy, both financial and reputational, is closed to the Sussexes. Furthermore, the financial atrophy facing the couple has turned their Montecito lifestyle into a gilded cautionary tale. With the loss of WME and the downgrading of their streaming deals, the couple has been forced into the mommy influencer phase, trading on the digital images of Archie and Lilibet. This move has backfired, inviting a melancholy and creepy perception of their home life. The inconsistencies in the footage of the children, which many analysts believe are quilted together from different time frames, have only widened the credibility gap. The man who once claimed to hate the media's intrusion is now presiding over the digital exploitation of his own heirs, a tragic irony that has alienated even their most sympathetic supporters in the United States. As of the 10th of April 2026, the victory of reputation belongs to Prince William and the future king-in-waiting. His iron fist policy, supported by the hardworking coalition of Anne, Edward, and Sophie, has successfully reclaimed the moral high ground. The monarchy is no longer looking over its shoulder at the Sussex stain. It is looking forward to the radiant monarchy defined by William, Catherine, and the rising James Alexander. The era of correction has shown that a sense of birthright is no match for the reality of duty. The final edit of the 2026 crisis is written in the halls of Parliament and the quiet corridors of Sandringham. Harry and Meghan are left in a no-man's land, too controversial for Hollywood's heritage brands and too alienated for the royal fold. Their calculated vanity has led to a total systemic failure. Meanwhile, the bells of the monarchy ring for a new era, one where the performance of duty is the only gateway to the throne. The exile of the Sussexes is no longer a temporary rift, it is a permanent state of being. The book on Harry and Meghan has been closed, and the radiant monarchy moves forward, leaving the shadows of Montecito behind forever. The transition of power and public affection within the royal family has reached a state of equilibrium that would have seemed impossible just 2 years ago. The meticulous planning of the correction era has yielded a monarchy that is more streamlined, more focused, and significantly more popular than during the peak of the Sussex drama. Central to this success is the total commitment to a service-first ideology, a contrast so sharp against the celebrity-first approach of the Montecito enclave that even the most casual observers have taken note. The king's refusal to be drawn into any further public or private skirmishes with his younger son has effectively deprived the Sussexes of the oxygen they need to survive as royal adjacents. Without the ongoing conflict, their narrative lacks the tension required to command high-value media contracts. This has created a self-reinforcing loop of irrelevance. As Harry and Meghan find themselves excluded from the official life of the crown, their commercial value in the United States continues to plummet, leading to more desperate attempts to re-engage with royal themes, which in turn leads to further palace distance. This cycle has reached its conclusion in the spring of 2026. The British public, having seen the stability and grace offered by the Prince and Princess of Wales and the emerging James Alexander, appears to have no appetite for the return of the Sussex drama. The institutional memory of the crown is long, and the lessons learned from the correction era will likely shape the monarchy for generations to come. The era of the individual royal superstar has been replaced by a team-based approach to duty, where the strength of the institution is found in its collective reliability rather than personal grievances or charisma. As the sun sets on the Sussexes' royal ambitions, it rises on a House of Windsor that has proven its resilience once again. The story of Harry and Meghan is now being taught in media studies as a cautionary tale of how to lose a legacy, while the reign of King Charles III is being celebrated for its tactical brilliance in protecting the future of the British throne. The silence from the palace is not just a refusal to speak, it is a declaration of victory. The monarchy has not only survived the storm, it has used the winds of change to navigate toward a more secure and dignified future. The final pages of this chapter are being written, and they speak of a crown that remains untarnished, a family that remains unified, and a nation that has moved on. The era of correction is over, and the era of the radiant monarchy has begun. The boundaries are set, the roles are clear, and the future of the British crown is more certain than ever before. James Alexander stands as the new guardian of the spare role, bringing a sense of youthful vigor and old-school values that have resonated across all demographics. His emergence has provided the perfect counterpoint to the volatile history of the previous occupant of that position. By focusing on his education and his gradual introduction to state duties, the palace has showcased a model of royal development that prioritizes preparation over publicity. This approach has silenced critics who argued that the monarchy was out of touch. Instead, the crown has demonstrated that it is capable of evolving while maintaining its core principles. The Sussexes, meanwhile, are left to contemplate their next move in an increasingly indifferent Hollywood landscape. Their attempts to rebrand as lifestyle gurus or political influencers have been met with skepticism, as the shadow of their royal departure continues to haunt their every endeavor. The permanent exile is not just a geographical reality, but a psychological and professional one. As the world moves forward into the latter half of 2026, the British monarchy stands as a beacon of stability in an uncertain world, its strength derived from the very traditions and duties that Harry and Meghan once sought to redefine. The clinical conclusion of the Sussex crisis is a testament to the enduring power of the crown and the strategic wisdom of those who wear it. The era of drama is finished, and the era of duty is the only narrative that remains.